Mobvoi, the company behind the Ticwatch, says that with the Ticwatch Pro 3 Ultra GPS you can capture every heartbeat. That because it has access to all 5 global satellite systems, it can accurately track your position, and that it can detect when you're in a light sleep phase, which enables it to wake you up in a natural way. However, is any of this true, and how does it compare to some of the competition, some of which is significantly cheaper? That's what we're going to find out in this video, where I test the sleep tracking, heart rate accuracy, oxygen saturation measurements, step counting, and GPS accuracy of the Ticwatch Pro 3 Ultra GPS. For those of you that are new to the channel, my name is Rob and I'm a postdoctoral scientist specializing in biological data analysis. In my videos, I try to avoid lengthy discussions of the specs, but I just want to highlight one unique feature of this watch, namely the fact that it has a dual display. This basically means there's a low power display on top of a more power intensive AMOLED display. Mobvoi says that in smart mode you have 72 hours of battery life and up to 45 days in essential mode. However, on my channel we care most about the real life accuracy of the health tracking features, and since I'm in a unique position to test the sleep tracking, I want to start off with this sleep test. To test the sleep tracking accuracy, I'll compare the Ticwatch Pro 3 Ultra GPS against the Dream 2 EEG headband, which can actually measure your brain waves and is purpose built to track your sleep stages. I performed these tests over a total of 4 nights. I would have tested more nights, however Mobvoi does not allow easy access to your own data, which meant I manually had to copy over the data from the app, which cost me about 2 hours and part of my sanity. So Mobvoi, please add an export functionality to the app. Here you can see the results of that labor. I show what percentage of each of the actual sleep stages was predicted as each sleep stage by the Ticwatch. On top are the sleep stages according to the Dream 2 EEG headband, and on the left the sleep stages according to the Ticwatch. Now each column here sums to 100%, meaning that we can see what percentage of each of the actual sleep stages was predicted as each sleep stage by the Ticwatch. And to be clear, when I say Ticwatch, I of course mean the Ticwatch Pro 3 Ultra GPS, but I think we would all get a bit sick of me trying to say that too often. First of all, we see that almost all of the deep sleep I had was also correctly recorded as being deep sleep by the Ticwatch at about 95%. If it was confused, it was mostly confused with light sleep. However, the Ticwatch does tend to predict way too much deep sleep, as you can see for an individual night here. On top we have the sleep stages according to the Dream 2 EEG headband, with the clock time along the horizontal axis and the sleep stages on the vertical axis. On the bottom you have a similar plot, but now for the Ticwatch. I've highlighted all the deep sleep in purple here, and as you can see the Ticwatch does detect almost all of the deep sleep. However, it also detects a lot of extra deep sleep that was not really there. And we basically see the same thing for all of the nights. Practically all of the deep sleep is detected, but a lot of extra deep sleep is also detected. Next, we see that a little over 1/3 of the light sleep is correctly detected. However, a lot of what was light sleep was actually detected as being deep sleep by the Ticwatch. And about the same total amount was detected as being either REM sleep or awake time. REM sleep detection is by far the worst, with only 20% of REM sleep correctly detected. Most REM sleep was actually detected as being light sleep. However, quite a bit of it was also detected as being deep sleep or awake moments. This is also what we see looking at the individual nights. The real REM sleep, marked here in red, was not correctly detected by the Ticwatch, and most of it is actually missing. This also means you cannot really see the sleep cycles. You go through roughly 4 to 6 sleep cycles each night, each one starting with light sleep and deep sleep, together called non-REM, which is marked here in blue, and each one ends in REM sleep, marked here in red. And as you can see, I had 5 sleep cycles this night. However, based on the data from the Ticwatch, you would not be able to see this at all. We see the same thing for this next example right here. You would not be able to see your sleep cycles based on just the data from the Ticwatch. Finally, awake detection seems okay, with about 3/4 of awake time correctly detected. If it was confused, it was mostly confused with light sleep, which makes sense since light sleep is the closest sleep stage to being awake. However, a substantial part was also detected as deep sleep by the Ticwatch. It does, however, detect me as being awake way too much, as you can see in this example plot right here. In general, the Ticwatch detected a lot of awake moments. And the same goes for this second example night right here. There are a lot of awake moments according to the Ticwatch that were not there in reality. What I did not show in these graphs is that the Ticwatch quite often detected me as waking up too early, which is quite an issue. Of the 12 nights I wore the watch, it did this 3 times, so 1 out of 4 nights. Additionally, if we compare its accuracy to that of some other devices, we see it does not come off well here. This graph contains a lot of information, so let me try to explain what you see here. Along the horizontal axis we have the average accuracy over the 4 individual sleep stages, and on the vertical axis we have the accuracy of the worst sleep stage. The better a device, the more to the top right it is, and as you can see, the best devices include different Fitbits, in this case the Fitbit Sense, Inspire 2 and Charge 5, which all perform about equally well, and these are joined by the Whoop Strap 3.0, 4.0 and the Withings Sleep Analyzer. As you can see, the Ticwatch is pretty far to the bottom left, which is largely due to its poor performance tracking light sleep and REM sleep. So all in all, this is not looking that great. So the sleep tracking of the Ticwatch is not great, it's not good at tracking my sleep stages, and it's even pretty bad at detecting the moment I wake up. However, what about heart rate tracking? Is that any good? Before answering that question, if this video has been helpful, a sub to the channel would definitely be heartwarming. I'll start by looking at the easiest type of exercise for a watch to track, cycling indoors. Now this involves very little movement and will therefore produce very little noise. Here you see an overview of that accuracy. Each dot is a single heart rate measurement, with along the horizontal axis the value according to the Polar H10 ECG chest strap, and on the vertical axis the value according to the Ticwatch. The blue line indicates perfect agreement, so any measurement along this line is roughly the same value for the Polar H10 and the Ticwatch. The more measurements there are in a certain area, the darker black the color. The red line indicates those moments where the watch detected half the actual heart rate, which is what some watches get when they have a poor signal. As you can see, most points are indeed along the blue line, however there are still quite a few points away from the blue line. Looking at the individual rides, we can see why that is. Along the horizontal axis here we have the time, and my heart rate is along the vertical axis. In blue I plotted my heart rate according to the Polar H10 ECG chest strap, and in red my heart rate according to the Ticwatch. As you can see, the two lines mostly agree, however there are some clear moments of deviation, for instance right here and also right here. We see the same for this second ride, mostly good agreement but still some moments where the watch is struggling. And there are also some rides that are quite a bit worse, like this one right here for instance, where some segments of the training were quite a bit off, like here and here. And we see the same thing for this ride right here, it really struggled right here and right here. So slightly mixed results so far. Will it struggle more when I up the ante? In other words, how does it perform when cycling outside? That overview is displayed here, and we see that the agreement is quite a bit worse compared to cycling indoors, though it is not terrible. Now cycling outside is much more difficult for watches since it involves much more bumpiness and therefore much more noise. Watches also tend to shift more on my wrist, making it harder for them to accurately detect my heart rate. And as you can see, we indeed see quite a bit of deviation. Looking at the individual rides, we indeed see that it mostly follows along well with my heart rate, but it fails to pick up on really fast changes, as we can see for instance right here, but also right here, and right here. And that's basically what we see for all rides. I would say it's good enough, though you can see that it struggles. However, there were some rides where it struggled a lot more, like in the beginning of this ride right here, but also here in the beginning of this ride we see quite some deviations. And here it struggled for most of the ride, only near the end was it able to pick up on my heart rate correctly. Finally, let's take a look at weightlifting. Now this is the type of exercise that watches generally struggle with the most because of all the tension placed on my wrist and arms. As you can see in this overview, at a higher heart rate almost all of the points are below the blue line. This is because the watch cannot track my increased heart rate during each of the sets that I did. It will follow along with the overall lowest points in my heart rate, but it cannot track the peaks in my heart rate. And we see that for all of the workouts. It tracks the general lowest patterns but not the peaks. So the heart rate tracking is okay. What about detecting my SpO2 or oxygen saturation? The way I tested the oxygen saturation measurements is twofold. First, over the last weeks I measured my oxygen saturation at ground level in the morning and in the evening. At the same time I also recorded my oxygen saturation with a dedicated finger pulse oximeter. At ground level my oxygen saturation should be within my normal range, which is generally between 97 and 100%. The Ticwatch should not detect any low values during this test. For the second test I tested if the Ticwatch was correctly able to detect a lowered oxygen saturation in a low oxygen environment. However, let's first take a look at those measurements at ground level. On the left are the measurements taken with the Ticwatch, and on the right the measurements taken with the finger pulse oximeter. As you can see, the Ticwatch detects a slightly lower SpO2 than the finger pulse oximeter. However, all the values are still more or less in my normal range, which is good. Next, let's see if the Ticwatch can correctly detect a truly lowered oxygen saturation. Specifically, I tested it during a flight because in flight the pressure in the airplane cabin is decreased, effectively making it a low oxygen environment. Here I plotted my oxygen saturation values measured with a finger pulse oximeter during a flight. In the beginning here, before taking off, my SpO2 values are at the normal levels. Then, as the plane climbs, those values drop to around 92%, and as it descends again, the values go back to normal. Now there are some missing values right here, but you can still see when the plane took off and where the low values are supposed to be. So how did the Ticwatch perform? Well, that is displayed here. Each dot is a single manual measurement with the Ticwatch, and as you can see, the Ticwatch did indeed detect lower values during the flight, though they're only marginally lower. We can confirm that by adding the values I took at ground level. Now the ground level values we previously looked at are displayed on the left right here, and indeed the SpO2 values while in flight are lower than those at ground level, though they are still quite close to my normal range. So the Ticwatch can detect a lower SpO2 value, but it's not very sensitive and the values don't drop as much as they should. What about GPS tracking? Mobvoi claims to be pretty good at this. So I tested this while cycling to and from work, and I want to test two different things. One, how long does it take for the watch to get a GPS signal? And two, how well the GPS signals overlap when cycling the same route multiple times. That is displayed right here for 5 times I cycled to work. I started the activity the moment I was ready to leave, and I did not give the watch any extra time to acquire the signal. The green markers indicates those moments it connected the GPS signal, and as you can see there was quite some delay in it getting that signal. Twice I was only a few minutes away from work before it acquired the signal. Now the consistency between signals seems okay when it has a signal. There are some moments where they're really close together, but also some moments where it's deviating quite a bit more. There's this one moment right here where all signals all of a sudden shift to the right and have me going through this building right here before getting back on track. I'm not sure what's going on here, it's definitely wrong, but why does it always happen at the exact same time? Now the way back shows the same problems. Again here in the beginning we have this weird moment where the signal shifts to the right all of a sudden, it goes through some buildings and then it shifts back to the right position. And it always happens at the exact same moment. Now I'm not sure if this problem is internal to the Ticwatch or if something else is going on, but it's definitely weird. If you have some idea why this is, let us know in the comments below. Again, there is some delay in it acquiring the signal. It should be acquired right here, but it takes some time and sometimes a bit more time. But overall the signal was acquired faster than for the way there. And the signals that are recorded can deviate quite a bit, as you can see for instance right here and also right here, though they're also sometimes closer together. So the GPS tracking is not great. The watch also has a step counter. To see if this counts my steps accurately, I went out and took exactly 4,000 steps in segments of 1,000 steps. To get an accurate step count, I manually counted my steps using this tally counter. Let's take a look at those results. As I mentioned, for the step counting test, I went out and I took 4 times exactly 1000 steps. I wore the Ticwatch on my right arm and I alternated holding the tally counter in my left and right hand for each set of 1000 steps, which is what the right and left labels refer to here. Now these are the actual steps counted by the Ticwatch when I was wearing it on my right arm, and as you can see they're somewhat close to the actual 1000 steps I took for each of the 4 segments. However, the Ticwatch did tend to overcount quite a bit more than most other watches, so again not great. And just to put it in perspective, here are the steps counted by the Huawei Watch GT3 and the Scanwatch Horizon I wore at the same time. As you can see, though these watches also tended to overcount my steps, they did not do it as drastically as the Ticwatch. The Ticwatch Pro 3 Ultra GPS is my first Ticwatch, and honestly I do not feel that the health tracking and the GPS are that pro or ultra. It does a decent job at heart rate tracking, and I would say it's just slightly above average compared to other devices. However, the sleep tracking, SpO2 measurements, GPS and step counting are not as good as many of the other devices I've tested. If heart rate tracking is the most important thing to you, then the Apple Watch is great. If you're on Android, I would select either the Huawei Watch GT3 or the Garmin Venue 2, and those videos are linked right here and right here. If you want good sleep tracking, then Fitbit is your best bet, and those videos are linked right here. I hope this video provided some value. Thank you so much for watching and catch you in the next video.